Hi everyone, my name is Aarathi Selvan. I'm the founder director at Pause for Perspective. I'm going to be talking about intersectionality today. My conversation today is sourced from one of our articles on Pause for Perspective's blog site. This is an article written by one of our writers, Omeha. I am sourcing most of my talk here from that article, so I will also link that article. Thanks to Omeha for writing it. So, what is intersectionality? Is it just another sort of fancy feminist jargon? Today, I want to be able to discuss, intersectionality, its history and context, and the dire need for it in our world. Now, according to APA, intersectionality is a paradigm that addresses the multiple dimensions of identity and social systems as they intersect with one another and relate to inequality such as racism, genderism, heterosexism, ageism, and classism, among other variables. In the year 1989, Kimberly Crenshaw introduced the term intersectional feminism. She's a black feminist and a lawyer. She's also the professor of race and gender at UCLA School of Law and Columbia Law School. Now, she wanted to bring to everyone's attention the oppression faced by black women. Now, not just as women, and not just as black, but because they were both black and women. Now, that is what intersectionality is about. It's about how different aspects of one's identity, religious, gender, class, sexuality, and so forth, influences the discrimination that one faces. It is essentially about people who get lost in between. At the juncture of wanting equal rights as black people and as women, black women often got lost. The discrimination black women face is different from the discrimination white women face. So intersectionality is that realization that you have more than one identity, and your identity is the culmination of all these aspects: your race, your gender, your language, your class, your sexuality. It's never just that you are, a certain singular identity. These identities cannot be singled out because we're all not just this one singular person. I just wanted to talk real quickly about feminism in India. The feminist movement started in about 1850s by men who wanted to uproot evil traditions like sati and child marriage. In the 1900s, the nationalist movement started to focus more on the freedom of India than these social issues. However, we know that Dalit women have been active throughout history, though often this has not been recorded. They were actively involved in the anti-caste and anti-untouchability movement in the 1920s. Mainstream feminist thought in India during the 1980s and 1990s began to recognize these issues surrounding caste. It was a marked change from the various feminist movements in the 70s and the 80s, which did not address caste issues. Intersectionality and intersectional feminism, was present even before the word was coined in India. Two pioneers, Jyoti Rao and Savitribai Phule, in the 19th century, recognized the interplay and living within the identity of Dalit identity. They knew about the necessary work that is needed for women and lower castes who were very disadvantaged, and the work that was needed, that education was the most important, education was the most important aspect to emancipate women and those who were poor and who were Dalit. However, so a lot of schools were established by Jyotirao Phule and Savitribai Phule. However, because of the contention that was faced, that they faced by upper castes. They were thrown out of their own homes, and along with Fatima Sheikh, who also knew how to read and write, the two women, Savitri Bai Phule and Fatima Sheikh, they challenged these notions and started schools in 1849. In 1852, there were 3 Phule schools in operation, and 273 girls were pursuing education in these schools. But by 1858, they had all closed due to the First War of Independence. Their joint efforts led to the democratization of education rights that as we see it today. It was in 1949 when the Constitution was drafted that equal rights were given to all citizens in India. Baba Sahib was fierce in advocating for equal rights, and is seen as having publicly burnt the Manusmriti and stood up for sort of misogynistic ideas in religious texts. He facilitated for the legal recognition of women as equal citizens. He worked towards granting women the right to divorce, the right to inheritance, and he provided for legal recognition of intercaste marriages as well. He did this despite the opposition he faced from the conservative members of the Congress party. Now, how do we understand the layers of oppression? There's no denying that oppression there's no denying that oppression exists. However, oppression is not one size fits all. Different groups are oppressed differently, and when we speak of intersectionality, we have to remember that minority groups are not oppressed more. For instance, women in minority groups are not oppressed doubly than women in majority groups. They're oppressed differently. Now, Crenshaw explained that the way, I'm quoting her, the way that we imagine discrimination or disempowerment often is more complicated for people who are subjected to multiple forms of exclusion. The good news is that intersectionality provides us a way to see it. We might have to broaden our scope of how we think about where women are vulnerable, because different things make different women vulnerable. I stop quote. Intersectional feminism aims to highlight this particular aspect, the fact that women from different groups are oppressed differently. Dalit women go through different struggles than their upper caste counterparts. While upper caste women might fight for equal pay, menstrual hygiene, and so forth, Dalit women fight for these, but also with the added layer of fighting casteism and fetishization of minorities. While Muslim women in India have different struggles altogether, their struggles can include fighting the sexism in their community and outside the community, right? Objectification of their Muslim identity, and very recently the fight for citizenship. All of that is seen under the purview of the struggles of people with different intersectionalities. One of the most important aspects of intersectionality is understanding one's own privilege in the society. It's not as easy as it sounds, because it means that we have to learn how to understand our own position in the society and to question authority. Intersectionality is about this. When we recognize privilege, we understand the society better and are also in a better position to help people. This comes from constantly challenging authority and people in positions of power, including yourself. Once we unite against the common enemy we have, that is patriarchy, only then can we fully see equality and equity. And I'm going to quote Audre Lorde, who said, "I'm not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own." Thank you. What I will actually do is add a couple of slides that we have done in the past about how one can do this work of looking at one's own privilege and working towards being a conscious ally when there is, when you have, and if you, and where you have, you inhibit in power. Yeah, thank you so much.